All right. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Black Ronins of Japan, courtesy of YouTube. I am your host, Sigma Jones. The Shinobi Bro himself, Kirigakure Jones, is here as well. First and foremost, we just want to give a shout out to our subscribers. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for tuning in. We truly appreciate the love and support. 日本の視聴者は YouTube のブラックロニンシリーズへようこそ。どうもありがとうございました。Hope you all are doing well tonight here in America and this morning here in Japan and anywhere else around the world. So, hope you guys and ladies are ready for another episode where it's just Shinobi Bro and Osamurai-san just chopping it up and just giving the latest of what's going on around the world. So, before we get started, let me just introduce once again the Shinobi Bro himself, Kirigakure Jones. よろしくお願いします。
はい、ありがとうございます。皆さん、ブラックローニンズのシリーズへようこそ。見てくれてありがとうございます。Thank you so much. We definitely appreciate the viewers tuning in to support the channel and the series, to listen in to our interviews with our special guests, and to listen to us talk about what we love about Japan, Japanese culture, society, whatever else we feel like talking about. So we really appreciate all the support out there. And, this is number 26 of the Black Ronins podcast. And we put in a lot of work. How long have we been doing this? It's been 2 years?
Almost 2 years. I want to say the first episode we aired, I want to say in the summertime, so around July, August is when we did our first episode. May have been, definitely may have been earlier than that. But yeah, it's almost 2 years. We've been rocking it out with these podcasts, and it seems like the each episode we do just keeps getting better and better. Like the interviews we've done so far, just the topics we've been highlighting, everything. It's really coming along well, very well.
I think so. And I think that's kind of a testament to, kind of the breadth and the depth of the Japanese culture, Japanese experience, Japanese music, Japanese food. I think that sometimes content creators kind of go back to the same well. They kind of talk about the same subjects over and over again, and it gets kind of stale. But I have to say that there's always something new, something interesting, something profound to think about. So I guess I'm in a retrospective mood tonight. So, 申し訳ございません.
Hi. Yeah, you are absolutely right, Shinobi Bro. And even if we do brush up on, you know, older topics from the past and all, it still kind of gives different twists to it. So it's not like it's just the same repetitive talk. There's something else we add on to it, something more we kind of give our own introspections or other folks' introspections about. And speaking of that, like our last two interviews with Kokujin Samurai and LSM, each of their interviews were very unique and gave different perspectives that were different from previous interviews. They definitely kind of contributed in their own way of their own topics.
Exactly. And I kind of like the fact that, we have the male and the female point of view. What is it like to approach the culture and to engage with the culture and take it seriously? I sent you a text message this morning. Today was my daughter's Sotsukyo Shiki ceremony. She graduated from Yochien, or Japanese kindergarten. So she's going to be headed to first grade here in a couple of weeks. And, I was pretty struck because, since my wife obviously is from Japan, and my children have Japanese blood, it's like I'm in a lot of different family related situations, things like school and play dates, family, in-laws, things of that nature. And who knows one day, Osama-san, you might be in that same boat. But I was struck when I went to the school how organized everything was,
Mm.
how, the parents were, they were neatly dressed. I rocked a suit for the occasion. Um, the kids were looking really nice, looking very sharp, very well groomed, well dressed, and they were well mannered. And I said to myself, I said, "Self, this is Black Ronins SYSBM lifestyle in action."
Exactly, and definitely you and your family were looking very sharp in the pictures that I did see. So, that's what we preach over here at Black Ronins of Japan. We are a segment of SYSBM, so we definitely try to reach out to some of the young brothers who are interested in Japanese culture, and especially just learning the culture and developing themselves in the ways of Bushido or even in Jitsu, ways that would help to cultivate them as men, and especially the ones who are interested in the family dynamics and the family culture. We definitely help to talk on those subjects and give our advice and experiences so that way the brothers out there who are interested in that aspect, this is an avenue they can turn to. It's like, yeah, this helps me in my ventures as well.
Exactly. And it was interesting to me. Young Hinata was, preparing for this event for several weeks.
Mm.
In fact, she ordered the dress for my daughter. She ordered that from like the UK. She ordered two dresses from them, one for the Sotsugyo Shiki, the graduation, and the other was for Sotsuin Shiki. I think that's the word for like the entrance ceremony.
Mm.
So, clothes are being imported from as far away as England, literally, for this event. And that just goes to show, I think, just how seriously, and we've talked about this in the past, a wife who cares about things like face, like honor and reputation. Do the kids look dignified? I'll keep it 100. I know how to dress myself, but young Kinata was very insistent. She wanted to see like what suit, what shirt, what tie was I going to wear, all this kind of stuff, because she wanted to make sure that I didn't lose face in front of the larger Japanese community. And I was always it was always interesting, as always, when I see Japanese parents, Japanese school administrators, mad respect. We're bowing to each other. They speak to me in Japanese. Like no one like spoke to me in English. Like, you don't speak Japanese, you foreigner. No, they they went right off the bat. Kochi kudasai imasen ka? Like so they assume that I understood them. So oftentimes, and again, we've talked about this in the past. There's been a lot of unfair criticism leveled at the Japanese. They're this, they're that, they're not accepting. You'll always be an outsider. But as far as I could tell, I was treated just like any other parent whose child attended a Japanese only school. So anyway, just some quick opening thoughts on that. So with that, back to you.
Oh no, that's definitely awesome, man. And again, it just highlights, it's always nice to have that companion or spouse who cares about your health and well being. So if you vet right, you get something similar to what Shinobi Bro experienced, and even myself a little bit. I experienced the same thing. So hey, that's the Black Ronin lifestyle. So
Pretty
can't get
much,
enough
yeah.
of it. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and kind of jump into a lot what we got going on. This is just Osamura-san and Shinobi Bro. We just chopping it up, but we definitely got a lot to share with you all. So those who's gonna be tuning in later on, definitely if you get a chance, rewind and see what we got to share. So first things first. So just like on the last episode where we chopped it up, I did a few intros for some of our biggest supporters, and these are gentlemen and ladies who supported the Black Ronins podcast from day one, and they have definitely been very helpful in chopping that up with us. So for tonight, we have two special intros that I've created for two special individuals. And so I wanted to help to show them our gratitude for them being supporters of ours and everything. And so our first one is for Logic's Finest. And this is a gentleman who definitely pushes both of us to think of higher levels of thinking and
Definitely.
esoteric thinking as well. And so when I was coming up with his intro, I wanted to kind of like tie in to one of his favorite anime characters, as well as try to find a quote that personifies him in his ways of thinking. And so when you see his intro, you'll see kind of like what I call an anime mashup, where the character is from another anime, but the voice actor and the quote is from a different anime. But I thought it kind of ties in well with his intro. So without further ado, for Logic's Finest, his intro, or what we will call here his Ronin intro, is titled The Shinigami.
I'm so disappointed, Ichigo. So very disappointed. Sadly, your sword exhibits only fear. When you counter, it's because you fear being killed. When you attack, you fear killing. And when you try to protect someone, you fear you could let them die. The only thing that your sword speaks of is senseless fright. And that's not good. What you do not need in battle is fear. Nothing will come of it. You counter, you don't let them cut you. If you protect someone, you don't let them die. When you attack, you kill.
Go right ahead, sir.
That sounds like Logic's Finest. For I can easily see him saying that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, yeah, this will definitely personify his ways of thinking and all, and for sure, yeah, whenever he shows up in the chats and everything, that will be his intro that we share. So yeah, shout out to Logic's Finest.
Shout out to that
That's
brother.
his that's our special gift to him for being a great supporter of ours for the Black Ronins podcast. And then next up, another supporter of ours, Mr. AshTheMan. I had fun creating his Ronin intro because he's definitely more of the anime type, and if you ever get a chance to go to his videos, and back in the days he would do streams with another supporter of ours, JJ Wilson. They have a podcast called The Internal Vintage. Um, Hopefully they will be starting that back up later on. But I wanted to create a special intro for him from the Ronin side because he's always been a great supporter of ours behind the scenes and everything. And so for him, he's going to enjoy this particular intro. It's from one of his favorite animes and one of his favorite characters as well. This one is titled The Ghosts of Ito.
Well, all I can
Uh,
say is that was a very flashy clip.
and that's the sound Hashira from Demon Slayer. If anybody haven't seen that anime, definitely I recommend to watch it as well. But his character is very flashy or whatnot, and so when AshTheMan told me that that's one of his favorite characters, it was like, okay, I gotta be able to come up with something that entails that character in a special way, but still pay tribute to AshTheMan. So coming up with that intro with the music and everything in the background, I was like, yeah, this fits him very, very well. So AshTheMan, if you enjoy that intro, let me know. I definitely will send it to you as well, and especially Logic Finance with your intro. So anytime you guys show up in the chat, that's pretty much your intro going forward here at the Black Ronins. So definitely want to give a special shout out to them both, as well as for our other contributors who have their intros as well. So again, arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
All
I wonder
right.
though, does he have 3 wives though? Because Lord Tengen, he got down.
Oh, well, I'll put it like this: AshTheMan, he's definitely a family man. He's only dealing with one particular lady at this point in time, so definitely not on that particular level. But nah, that's one of his favorite characters. So it's like, okay, yeah, I could definitely come up with a special intro for that and everything. But nah, AshTheMan and Tengen, two separate type of men, but they definitely share similar interests and all. All right. So that is that section. So now we're gonna go to a new segment that is going to be the first ever here on the Black Ronins podcast, and it's a segment that is specifically for Shinobi Bro. And we're definitely going to get well into it. And so this segment is called Intel with Kirigakure Jones.
はい。Show. Gaia. Shin. Haitsu.
Zin.
Yeah, I had fun coming up with that intro for your segment, sir. But
It's an awesome intro.
oh yeah. So Shinobi Bro, the floor is yours, good sir.
Okay, well, let me. What I wanted to talk about tonight, and I've kind of touched on this in kind of past conversations that we had. I'm a big believer in the relationship that the U.S. and Japan share, and it is a alliance. It's a military alliance. It's a political alliance, but also it's an economic alliance. For example, this is an article published in the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. This came out on March the 9th, so it's fairly recent. The title is How Silicon Valley Can Drive Closer U.S.-Japan Collaboration. Now, if I may, before we kind of get into this, I want to talk a little bit about how I see the world. Unfortunately, we have a conflict going on in the Eurasian sphere. Unfortunately, many people are suffering, and a lot of bad things are happening on that front. So just want to give my thoughts to those who are suffering, and hopefully that suffering will come to an end very quickly. However, with that being said, the way I see the world right now is globalization is under a lot of strain. So, we had a regime of, money and people and capital easily crossing across borders. We had kind of a situation where cultures throughout the world were getting more unified or more uniform in terms of things like McDonald's, the NBA, Michael Jordan's and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
However, going forward, I see more of a compartmentalization. I think that the world is going to be organized in blocks. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I think that's where we're going. And in future intel reports, I like to dive into things like food supplies, commodities, markets, things of that nature. But I think that, for example, the United States will have a few different, very close allies. And one of those allies is going to be Japan. And it will, that will be the case for quite the foreseeable future. I don't see any real scenario where this changes. So even if globalization is going to be restructured, even if it looks different going forward, I think that the US, Japan, and there's been some interesting developments in South Korea as well, which maybe we could talk about another time. But I think that, Japan is going to remain a key partner for the United States. And there are a lot of reasons for that. There's shared values, there's shared systems of government. There's a lot of economic interests on both sides. And basically, as this particular article talks about, there was a 2+2 meeting between Joe Biden and the Prime Minister Kishida Fumio. And the agreement in principle was made that the US and Japan would collaborate on different types of technologies, defense related, but also other types of cooperation. So just to read a bit here, they proposed a 2+2 coordination framework for their top foreign and economic ministers and pledged to enhance cooperation in areas such as technology, supply chains, and standards. And we're going to hear a lot more, in my opinion, about supply chains, especially because, unfortunately, because of said war that is going on, I believe there's going to be a lot of disruption to food supply chains. There's going to be, fertilizer. There's going to be, maybe rare earths and precious metals and uranium. There's just going to be a lot of disruption in these spaces. And it's going to be in America and Japan's best interest to kind of tighten that up. And there's going to be a lot of money that is going to flow on both sides of the ocean. For example, quote, when Biden hosted former Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide at the White House last April, the two sides issued a joint statement that went well beyond prior vague commitments to collaborate. The two leaders zeroed in on the digital economy as a focus for trade cooperation and promised to deepen R&D in a vast array of emerging and foundational fields of technology, the life sciences and biotechnology, artificial intelligence, quantum information sciences, civil space, 5G telecommunications, and semiconductors. So
Nice.
not to go on, I could go on and on, but I don't want to bore our audience, but there's going to be a lot of coordination. And the way I see it, going forward, we're basically going to have a lot more of blocks happening. There's going to be kind of the U.S. sphere of influence and the allied countries that are with the U.S. There's going to be, maybe a China-centric, China-Russia-centric block and, affiliated and associated countries. There's going to be wild cards. I think Africa, for example, is going to be a wild card. China has a big head start, but I think that other countries are going to be looking at Africa for more resources, especially since, there's been a lot of sanctions thrown around because of the conflict. So with all that being said, globalization will continue, but it will be, I think, in a very different form than the way that we've seen it thus far. There's going to be allied countries that are going to be friendly with each other, countries that trade with each other. And I think there's just going to be a lot of opportunity. And I know that you're in the technology space, for example, for collaboration, especially between America and Japan. I think that this is just going to be another tie that binds the two countries together. So that is the Intel report with Kirigakure Jones.
Nice. But honestly, Shinobi Bro, that's why I like this segment and everything, because first off, it goes well with your background and finances and a lot of stuff that ties in, as far as the collaborations and whatnot that goes in. And I know from your golden days when you used to stream and everything, that's kind of was one of your topics, and especially um tie in from the SYSBM side and all. So I was like, you know what? We got to make sure Shinobi Bro is able to kind of give some remnants from his days and everything, as far as like his specialties and all. Otherwise, Shinobi Bro's not able to show his he's not able to show his specialties and everything. So definitely wanted to make sure, bro, you're able to tie in some of your cool stats and stuff that you bring to the table as well.
I appreciate it. I enjoy talking about that kind of thing because it is, I eat it, eat, breathe, and sleep this kind of stuff. Like AO, shout out to the chat, for example. So AO references the 3 keys. So that's basically income producing assets, low cost of living, and only dealing with quality. So those are the 3 keys to success. And I like this. I like incorporating this into the Black Ronins sphere because I find this all to be a positive. I'm very bullish on life, the way things are going for us, the trajectory of the like-minded brothers, our Japanese friends and collaborators. I think that things are bright and going to get even brighter for those who are, have the will and the skills to take advantage of those opportunities. So, if I can just throw out some information that are useful to the brothers and to those in the land of Japan, then I'm all for it.
Exactly. And believe me, there's going to be more coming down the pipe. I mean, I was just listening in. I was like, man, I feel like I'm just grabbing some intel stuff. And it's funny you mentioned about, especially from the tech side. So, I work for a university, and I can't tell you, with my university that I work for, they have a lot of international reach, and one of their biggest collaborators are schools from Japan. And so I can't wait to see, as far as like some of our incorporations we're going to be doing with them, as well as what they're going to be receiving from us going down the road. And so it's kind of like, yeah, being able to see what's going on from that sector, and then from as far as like the Black Ronin side with our whole martial arts and Japanese culture. It is going to be a lot to share going down the road. So definitely looking forward to that.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, these are groundbreaking technologies, and I think that really, if you have the U.S. and Japan working on these together, I mean, that's just going to accelerate the process. So, I mean, the rewards for those who are prepared are going to be vast.
Indeed, bro. Indeed. Definitely going to be looking for that. So now, speaking of collaborations, we're going to move to another segment that is also going to be a first starter this episode going forth. And this is something that me and Shinobi Bro have been working behind the scenes, and we definitely looking forward to having it start tonight. And so the Black Ronins podcast, we officially have our own Instagram page, and in the chat you can actually go to it. It's posted by our AI chatbot, the Batissimo. You could definitely go to our Instagram page, and starting this month, we're going to have our top 3 posts that we're going to share, here on the Black Ronins podcast. So whenever me and Shinobi Bro do our episodes where we just chopping it up like tonight or this morning, we will be showing our top 3 posts that we receive from the Instagram page over here to the YouTube page, the podcast page. So how this works is usually myself or Shinobi Bro will go through and find some videos that we feel is in line with what we talk about here on the Black Ronins podcast. We repost it from our Instagram followers or just people who just post, Japanese culture or martial arts, anything of related. And we look at it, it's like, this is be something that we could share, and we'll repost it on our page. And then based on how many likes that post get throughout the month, if it hits our top 3 when we go through and look through our insights and intel, we will mark it down, and then when we do our podcast, we'll be able to share it so that way they get special shout outs and highlights, and then later on we'll repost it on our Instagram page to thank them for allowing us to share their posts and being able to become part of the Black Ronins podcast. And so for tonight, we're going to start that inaugural top 3 posts of the month. And for this month, we got some top 3 that I think is going to be very, very interesting.
All right. Rubbing my hands together. Let's do it.
All right. And so shout out to Logic Finest, sir. Hopefully you got a chance to see your new Ronin intro. If not, definitely feel free to rewind so you can see that. But without further ado, let me go ahead and kickstart our music. Alrighty. So our first post our first post from Instagram, coming in at 3rd place, is a post from our YouTuber by the name, from our Instagrammer, Escola_Samurai. So his came in at 3rd place for the month, and we're going to be sharing his post, but we want to congratulate him from being able to allow us to reshare it, and we're going to share it now. So this is the post that came in 3rd place from Escola_Samurai. So definitely want to give a shout out to him, and many more posts from him in the future, but definitely a good shout out.
Yeah, that looks clean. That looks very similar to some of our Kenjutsu techniques.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So he came in at 3rd, and now coming in at 2nd place is actually our a female samurai. And so she has a Instagram page by the name of Katana Tachibana Sayori. And so she has a lot of imagery with her posts and all. And so her post came in 2nd for the month of March. And so we definitely wanted to share her post as well. Yeah, so shout out to Katana Tachibana Sayori. Definitely this was a great post, and a lot of our followers liked it, her posts and everything. So hers came in at 2nd place, so shout out to her.
Salute. All
right, and now coming in at number 1 is a post that was actually from a gentleman that's from Korea. And so his post actually garnered the most for this month, and when you see it, you'll definitely will say, yeah, that definitely came in at number 1. And so his Instagram page is called Taeyang_Dao. If I misspelled it, definitely feel free to let us know on Instagram. But his post came in at number 1, and so right now I am going to share it for everybody. Pulling up right now. Just awesome.
Yeah, he's not playing.
Yeah. So when I saw it, I said, yeah, I definitely got a share on our page and repost it and everything. And that post came in #1 for the month. A lot of folks just liked it, and they was even sharing that post from our post as well. So from Tyang_Dow, we just want to give a salute to you, sir, for sharing your posts and all, and being #1 of our Black Ronins of Japan podcast on Instagram. So shout out to everybody that were able to allow us to repost their posts, and we're able to get likes, and we will be showing our gratitudes on Instagram as well. So salute to everybody.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. I had
that's pretty dope, actually, because I mean, there's a whole group of individuals across the world who are, even in this modern era. And I think that sometimes some people, and unfortunately, again, kind of going back to our, modified globalization discussion, a lot of people felt like it was about Instagram and iPhones and Starbucks. And why would you even waste your time, blood, sweat, and tears, training, and all of that? Well, I think that there's been a huge wake-up call. Self-defense is still needed, even in 2022. So, I think that's a great way to highlight, as well as to, plug in to this community of martial artists and modern day samurai and shinobi practitioners. So, I like this segment.
Yeah, indeed. And already we just got an uptick of followers on the Instagram page. So for those who have not joined, definitely our AI chatbot is showing us the Instagram page. So if you guys and ladies that haven't joined yet, just feel free to join. And if you have some Japanese martial arts or Japanese culture that you like to share, just feel free to tag us over on our Instagram page and we'll repost it. And if your post or video happens to hit our activities and insights for the top post of the month, it will also be shared here on our podcast. So again, we just want to give a shout out to those top 3 of those individuals that their videos were our top posts for the month. And we look forward to more going down into the future.
Definitely looking forward to it.
All right. So now we're going to move on to our next segment. And this is actually a story that I was able to kind of find and everything.
Uh-oh.
Actually, this story just kind of came through my news feed one day, and I just happened to click on it and all. And once I saw it and I read it, I forwarded over to Shinobi Bro and I said, bro, we definitely are going to have to talk about this particular story. So, with that said, let me just kind of share this with the audience. So, for those who are from the anime side or the manga side, I'm pretty sure you have heard of the Nine Tails, i.e. from Naruto or Boruto. And so, the Nine Tails is pretty famous in the anime world and everything. But what if I were to tell you that there is a mythology that ties in with the Nine Tails? And what if I were to tell you that this mythology has now been unleashed into the real world, and there might be some repercussions of the Nine Tails?
And I think we did a podcast, what was it, around Halloween? I think maybe last year, the year before, we talked about, different, let's just say paranormal happenings in Japan. So, I think that in our modern world, we're kind of in a materialist mode where individuals don't necessarily believe in the supernatural. They don't necessarily hold any stock in the spirit realm or the spirit world. They're kind of more about, if science can't explain it, I'm not interested. or people are quick to kind of write off these kind of things as quote unquote superstition. This person is superstitious, things like that. And I'm like, well, one should approach these things with, healthy skepticism, of course, but I'm not going to discount it. If someone is telling me, hey, this is a place where you'll probably die by mysterious means, I'm not sure if I necessarily want to try out that proposition.
Exactly. And so that's what kind of ties into this particular story that came from the Japan Times. And it talks about a killing stone that concealed a demon. And earlier this month, this killing stone happened to break in half. And now a demon is said to be on the loose, not only in Japan, but throughout the world. And that demon happened to be the Nine Tails. And so when I saw the story, I was like, yeah, we definitely have to talk about this. And believe me, we're going to be talking about more of these type of stories of, ancient mythology and Japanese folklore and all. But I think it would tie in well with the Black Ronins as far as our investigative side and what we can uncover from these ancient relics and even just ancient stories and how they may have some tellings as far as what it could tie with us.
Yeah, I mean, people pass down these stories for a reason. So, you could say, oh, these are just made up. But on the other hand, it seems to me that, if it's just a manufactured story, it would die out after 100 years, 200 years. But some of these legends have been handed down for literally centuries. So I'm not going to discount it offhand.
Exactly. Well, let's jump right into it to see what happened. And so this is from the Japan Times, which is a famous publication in Japan. By the way, for those who like to read and definitely like to do these investigative works, Japan Time right now has a special discount going on for their 125th anniversary. And so if you want to get in touch with their premium content, you can subscribe for half of their subscription costs. So right now they have a subscription going on for just $16 a month. And so I felt that this is definitely a great opportunity to share their content as well and utilize that. But for those who like to get in on the know of what goes on around Japan, whether in the real world or in the mythology, Japan Time is a great opportunity to kind of jump in on their great subscription for their anniversary month.
125 years. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know they were there for that long.
Right, I didn't know either. So for them to have a special going on for 125 years, that says a lot, and especially says a lot about how much they appreciate a lot of their history and a lot of stuff that that's been going on for years and all. So yeah, it definitely seems fitting, very fitting. And so, with that, the story goes off by saying, with so much going on wrong in the world, should we now also worry about a nine-tailed fox demoness that may be loose in a forest in Japan? The answer depends partly on your reading of ancient Japanese mythology. This month, a volcanic rock split in two in Nikko National Park, about 100 miles north of Tokyo. Intact, the rock was about 6 feet tall and 26 feet in circumference, according to a guide at the park. It had long been associated with a Japanese legend in which an evil fox spirit hunts a killing stone, or Sessho Seki in Japanese, making it deadly to humans. Some people have speculated that the fracture set the fox loose to cause further harm. Others have focused on variations of the legend that ends on a happier note. In that telling, after a Zen monk splits the rock into several pieces and coaxes out the fox. She promises never to harm humans again. Social media has plenty of theories about what the fracturing of the stone means for ordinary mortals. Excuse me. So does the Japanese news media. Is this an advance warning of a disaster or a good omen? Asked a recent article in the Asahi Shimbun, an influential newspaper. And so here's a picture that was captured on Twitter, and I would have to blow it up. In fact, let me just stop sharing real quick and share the actual picture. And refreshing at the moment. Okay, perfect. Here we go. And right now, so here is the rock that's right in the middle here at Nikko National Park. And as you can see, it definitely has split in half. And according to legend, this killing rock has contained the nine-tailed fox. And now that it's been split in half, she is now on the loose.
Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being a bit jumpy right now because of everything that's going on in the world. And also, I want to make sure that we take the time to offer our condolences. Also, there was an earthquake very near Fukushima. I think that happened like 2 or 3 days ago. And unfortunately, there's been some loss of life and, power outages, and some train lines were damaged too. So, but I'm pretty sure that the Japanese people will, of course, snap back pretty quickly. But, one of these interesting things that kind of finance people talk about is we like to look at everything in terms of cycles. So there are short-term cycles, long-term cycles. There are secular cycles, and there are structural cycles. There are, debt cycles. Some people are saying that we're in a commodities super cycle, right? So there's a lot of talk about cycles. So what is a cycle? It's basically kind of a loop or a spiral of time. So there is also such a thing as a war cycle that roughly every 100 years or so, unfortunately, we get into a situation where we've experienced, massive war at some point. So, who's to say, even if we chalk this up to, because some people will say, okay, well, maybe it's natural erosion, maybe it's the rain or whatever that caused this. Maybe they don't want to accept the idea of a nine-tailed demoness being involved. Who's to say that this is just a coincidence?
Very true.
Raising the eyebrows here.
Definitely raising eyebrows indeed. Well, I am going to skip down a little bit into this article so we can actually talk about who is this nine-tailed fox from the Japanese lore. And so the article goes on to say that the nine-tailed fox legend is set in the 12th century at the royal court in Kyoto, Japan's imperial capital. So, for those who don't know, there was once a time where the capital of Japan was not in Tokyo, but in fact used to be in present-day Kyoto. And it was actually set in Kyoto for many, many centuries before eventually the capital was moved to the current day Tokyo, but it was once called Edo under the Emperor Meiji. And so that's where we get the stories about the Meiji Restoration, or the era of the Meiji Emperor, and how Japan was turned into a modernized Japan that we know of today, thanks in part to Emperor Meiji, and the capital was moved from Kyoto to Tokyo. But beforehand, the capital was found in ancient Kyoto, and that's where we find our story of the Nine Tails. So it goes on to say, in the basic version, a retired emperor, Toba, an actual historical figure, is enchanted by a beautiful and intelligent visitor whose name was Tamamo no Mai. When Toba falls mortally ill, a royal astrologer discovers that the visitor is an evil fox in disguise. She flees into the wilderness, and warriors dispatched by the palace shoot her with arrows, transforming her into a poisonous rock. And so here is a depiction of Tamamo no Mime. And as you can see, she is a fox with 9 tails, and that's where we get the telling of the 9 tails that we all know of from Naruto and Boruto. And so here is our ancient connection to that. And
You know what's
so,
interesting? I'm sorry, go ahead.
go right ahead, Shinobi Bro.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, what's interesting to me is that we have this image of beauty, and we also have the fox. And in our own Western culture, of course, we have what is called a foxy lady.
Yes, sir.
Coincidence?
Coincidence? I think not.
I think not. Let's raise our eyebrows some more while we smoke our pipes and delve into this mystery.
Yes, indeed. And I'm glad you brought that up because, for a long time, and I can definitely speak for myself, growing up watching Naruto from my teenage years and all, when I think of the 9 tails, I think of, the aggressive depiction of the 9 tails, this huge kaiju and everything and whatnot. And obviously with the ninjutsu that goes on and the story with it and everything, I was definitely surprised when this news came about the actual story of the 9 tails and how no, it wasn't a male figure, but more of a female figure. And when you go on to read more about the 9 tails, she was definitely pretty, I would say, seductive. And she definitely caused a lot of mayhem in the imperial household that the ramifications, some say, is still being felt to this day.
Yeah, I mean, on one level, I mean, you could look at this from a number of different ways, right? You could look at it from a Western lens of a certain kind, and you could say that because I saw an article, I think it was more of a tongue-in-cheek article written by a Western lady, and she took a tack that was more like, basically, you can't handle a strong, independent fox lady who don't need no man.
Oh,
I mean, you could look at it that way, but what I would like to think, if I put and I must, full disclosure, my knowledge of Japanese culture is still limited, even though it's been 20 years, I guess, since I've been, in association with my Japanese friends and family. But the way I would think about it, I mean, if we look at ancient cultures, there's always this idea of the seductress, of like woman's power. And I think that in a lot of ways, this understanding has been lost because there's a lot of pressure, I think, on women to approach things from a masculine point of view, because
right.
they're basically being told that, okay, if you want to be taken seriously in business, politics, finance, or whatever, you have to approach it like a man would approach it. But in the old days, it was common knowledge that there was a feminine way of rulership, of power, of influence, these kind of things. So in some respects, you could probably say that this particular being, or story, however you want to call it, probably is a manifestation of that. I mean, a lot of people like to portray the ancients as this rigid, quote unquote, patriarchal culture. But if you really read in between the lines, there were a lot of gray areas there. I mean, like one of my favorite figures is Lady Yodo,
Mm.
for example. I mean, this was a woman that wielded significant power, even though, according to some people today, every lady was oppressed back in those days. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling here, but I think that, when we look at these particular archetypes, I think it's important to try to understand that archetype in the way that the people at that time would have seen it, not necessarily the way we would try to interpret that today from our Western 21st century materialist lens.
Exactly. And for some, like my expression when I first heard this story, I was kind of fascinated that, this kind of changed every perspective that I thought about the Nine Tails, and actually kind of when I read further about it, it kind of changes my whole perspective. And I have to say, Shinobi bro, I'm still kind of fresh in learning the ways and subtleties of the Japanese way and culture. For you, is going on 20 plus years. For me now, some would say it's still pretty youngin' to where I'm barely coming on now, maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years, as far as like my understanding, even though I've heard a little bit and understood some of Japanese culture when I was a kid, but I haven't really gotten into it until close to my college years, and then finally after spending some time traveling for the first time into Tokyo and Yokohama, is where I was able to finally start getting really deep into it. So, in comparison to you, good sir, I'm still kind of learning more, but it's definitely been fun. And, my expression so far has been something that's kind of reminiscent of, maybe something like this. Yeah, that's been my expression so far of Japanese culture.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, though, it's interesting. So, like, we talked about Kyoto.
Mm,
So, one of the names for Kyoto was Heian Kyo, kind of like the Heian period.
mm,
So, the translation of that is city of peace.
mm.
And there's another city that's a couple of thousand miles away that has that same meaning, and that is basically Jerusalem.
Right.
Because that also means, Salem being, city of peace. And I think that just from my kind of observation of ancient Japanese culture and thinking about, similar ancient cultures like the Greeks, the Romans, the Hebrews, and others, I think there are some very interesting similarities there in terms of how they interpreted. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe someone did encounter the Nine Tails. It's certainly
Right.
possible.
Right. And one thing I wanted to brush up that with a lot of these stories, there's not just, one version. A lot of these stories can have multiple versions. And so far, like with Tamamo no Mae, she actually has another version where the article talks about how, in another version of the legend, one that appeared in ancient plays and illustrated scrolls, a Zen monk is walking past the stone when a woman warns him not to go near it. She says it will kill any human, bird, or beast that does. The woman admits that she is the spirit of the stone, i.e., Nine Tails, and disappears inside it. After the monk strikes and breaks the stone with a staff, she reappears, promises never to harm humans again, and disappears for good. And so that kind of shows me right then and there that, with the Japanese, there's always an element of a good side or a bad side. And
Exactly.
even like with our nine tails here, that, for some people they see it as a good omen. That, by the stone breaking, maybe she's unleashed to bring more good of what's going on currently with the world, not so much a bad. And we could definitely see some good turnaround going forth.
I think you bring up a very good point. I noticed this kind of early on when I started watching anime. Ironically, Naruto, since we're kind of on the subject, and it took me a while to get this because typically what would happen. So you'd have a bad guy, and the bad guy is bad, right? I mean,
Mm,
he's doing evil stuff, right? He's murking people. He's he's doing all this stuff, and then they would spend some time on, okay, how did this person get this way, or what circumstances in their life happened, and then Naruto or the main character would typically try to grapple with that, and
right.
then oftentimes by the end of the arc they would either befriend, or maybe they had to defeat the enemy in battle, but there would be some sort of respect there.
Hmm.
um, so I found that to be very interesting, and I think that what you're saying about the nine tails in this legend, I think it kind of speaks to that. I think that for me personally, I think that people have encountered beings, whatever label you'd like to attach to them,
Hmm.
and then these encounters of these beings got handed down over the centuries, and then sometimes these beings were not beneficial, sometimes where they were beneficial. So we get all these different versions. I think that the paradigm that we live in today of a flat, secular, materialist scientism is a
Mm.
pretty boring one. There's no room for romance. There's no room for drama. There's no room hardly anymore for sex appeal.
Hmm.
It's just a very statistical, dry, empirical way to experience life. And if you bring that attitude to Japan, I can assure you that you're going to be very disappointed, because like we talked about in that live stream, the vengeful samurai head in Tokyo that like no one dares to disturb. I mean, you could write a paper on that as much as you want, but you're not going to convince the average person on the street to go, try their luck and try to move that gravestone or whatever it is. So just some thoughts I had.
No, Shinobi Road, you are absolutely right. And to me, I'm glad you touch up about how, with a lot of these stories, in Japanese folklore and mythology, it helps where it kind of gives balance to where, it's not just with one version where it's like there's a set story and, this happened and that happened and whatnot. With a lot of these characters that's given, there's a message and a theme behind it. And, it's not just with one version, there could be multiple versions. Like our friend in the chat, Abu, he said, like, the legend of Jiraiya is based on a similar Japanese fable that's about a toad, a slug, and a snake. And I can tell you that a lot of these stories, which, later on, the Black Ronins, we're definitely going to be touching on them and giving our own perspective, so definitely don't feel like we're finished with a lot of these tales, especially with the Nine Tails. We're definitely going to do some digging, on her background and all. But I can honestly tell you that, even from reading up on the stories and the characters and the meanings and the themes behind it, it got me so captivated that I I find myself where I want to venture out and find more information about it and find more of the writings and illustrated scrolls about them, to where I kind of find myself to the point of, hey, I feel so connected with these characters and have some respect. Actually, not, I wouldn't say some, but a lot of respect for them, that it 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 kind of makes me more motivated. And I think with a lot of these stories, especially not just from Japanese, but just like from the Eastern world of Asia, it like you pointed out, it gives more of a creative mind and imagination, to where it draws the audience and makes them want to find out more about these particular stories and characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it. It's like, and I don't, we talked about this during our food episode. Food in
Mm.
this country is super bland.
Oh yeah.
There's no, I mean, I can't remember the last time I went to a restaurant and ate and said, "Wow, this is awesome," because there's no spice, there's no flavor. Somebody somewhere said, "Okay, you need to throw in, X amount of steak, and you need to have X amount of vegetables, and don't add, spices or butter or whatever. Cook it this way." It's just a very tasteless type of experience.
Hmm.
Whereas in a place like Japan, and there are people who are very, very modern, who they don't have much use for kind of the old ways and the old stories.
Hmm.
I would probably say, and I'm probably going to get catch heat for this, but I would say a lot of people, if you find people like that, I'm pretty sure they're going to be concentrated in Tokyo for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm going to get catch heat for that. But when you deal with people from, the Kansai region,
Mm.
out in the countryside, I mean, these experiences have a lot of flavor with an
Yes,
A.
sir.
There's a lot of
Hmm.
spice. There's a lot of um, I was reading a book somewhere about Japan a long time ago, and it basically said that um, how do I want to phrase this? That there is a pinkness to life there. It's kind of a sexual reference, so I won't go into a whole
Mm.
lot of detail to keep this a family show. But but there's a zest there. So when we talk about these characters, like Naruto, to Abu's point, is loaded. I mean, they drew from Japanese mythology without hesitation, and they changed things to maybe tell their story in a new and fresh way. But like, in terms, there's ninjutsu, and then there's genjutsu, and then there's yojutsu. Like Orochimaru is a yojutsu
Mm.
user, and yojutsu is a separate art from ninjutsu. Although you had shinobi that were trained in all three: genjutsu, yojutsu, and ninjutsu. Genjutsu was its own art. Like the shinobi of old were not huge fans of the genjutsu practitioners, and vice versa. So I mean,
Mm.
they took a lot of that stuff from these ancient myths and legends. That's why people can't get enough of it, because I think people are hungry for the romance. Their ancestors didn't have iPhones, they didn't have electric vehicles, they didn't have food on demand. I mean, it was definitely a rougher, in a lot of cases, shorter life. There were
Mm.
definite hardships there, but you also had, great tasting spring water. You had the village harvest festival. You had, you know, um, people were very earthy when it came to things like love and sex and, childbirth and, they were in tune with the land. I don't want to romanticize it too much, but I think that at this stage, people, I think, are really looking for more of an authentic, spicy, flashy life, in honor of Lord, was it Tenjin Sama? So we might as well throw that in there since we're talking about it.
Yeah, indeed. And it's something you mentioned because I think back with our last two interviews we done, and with our good friends Patrick King Song and LSM, one thing that I kind of gotten from both of their stories and experiences is how Japan just reawakened them and has given them many different perspectives that have enhanced their life up until this point. And not just with Japan, but even just all across their experiences from East Asia, wherever they venture to. And it kind of showed, like you said, where people nowadays are looking for, especially if they're coming from America or any westernized country or environment, they're now looking for other elements in their life that helps to give them more meaning and give them
Mm,
more perspective to
mm,
kind of enhance their life even more so. And places like Japan just helps to kind of bridge that gap for them.
yeah.
And I can honestly say from even our experience too, when we think about Japan, there's so many elements and so many, perspective that have enhanced our lifestyle that, we constantly talk about. We look forward to the day where we could travel back there to, keep enhancing those perspective and the gaps that, that help bridge whatever meaning that we have within our life.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So, you know, our our Western model, it's I mean, it's done a lot of good.
Oh yeah.
I'm not anti-Western per se, but I think there is a point where, it's so regimented, it's so, calculated out, it's so rigidly structured that it basically squeezes out any access, um, way of being that, it may not be profitable, it may not be the most efficient,
Mm,
it may require some inconvenience, but it's something that people are missing, right? Like, if you ban salt and pepper and soy sauce for me, because that I use that quite a bit. I mean, if you ban spices, yeah, okay, you're still eating, but where's the flavor in that?
mm-hmm.
And then you go to a place like Japan where basically people still live, and it's right beneath the surface. They still live according to that, intuitive sense of how
Mm,
life should be. Going back full circle. So, to my daughter's graduation, it ran like a well-oiled machine. You know, Parents knew what they were supposed to do. Parents knew that they should wear something nice. Parents knew that their kids should wear something nice. They should look good. Everyone knew that, kids had to be well behaved. Everyone knew that the teachers were going to play their roles, and the principal and the parent teacher organization, they were out in force, making sure that the parents were taken care of and all of that, and it just worked. There was no
right.
debate, there was no argument about, is this systemic or is this, you know, there was, there was no discussion about, well, it's oppressive that you're making me wear a suit. I feel like my rights are violated. No, there was none of that. Show
Mm,
up, be civilized, make sure your kids look civilized, make sure they behave themselves, make sure the teachers are doing what they're supposed to do, and it just works, and it just works. And we all had a great time. We smiled, we laughed, we clapped for every child. We took a whole bunch of pictures. We went home.
Indeed, indeed. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Just that self mastery and the family aspect. Countries like Japan just helps to revitalize those aspects in their own little way. So, definitely can't get enough of it. And speaking of which, shout out to one of our main supporters, JJ Wilson. Sir, thank you for stopping by. And you already know, once you come through the chat, we definitely got to do this for you.
I'm not going there to die. I'm going to find out if I'm really alive.
Yeah, so shout out to JJ Wilson. Good to
Shout out
see
to
you,
him.
Yeah.
The song is killing me though. I'm with that though. I feel like I want to go back to the 80s, early 90s, you know what I'm saying, in terms of my music taste.
Man, you're right about that. So, and again, places like Japan, oh my goodness. I can't tell you when I was last there and I went to one segment of Tokyo where the izakaya and all, and bro, they're playing music from like Earth, Wind, and Fire, Stevie
What?
Wonder, Michael Jackson, and all. And they're just like, man, like this is like part of my childhood and everything. So when you got a place like that that's playing those oldies and everything, oh, you got a good place in my book. So.
And they appreciate it too though. They'll rock that, you know what I'm saying, and they won't even think twice about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, indeed. So, but before we end our show tonight and everything, that kind of brings to our last segment. So, you already know the Black Ronins, we're changing things up a bit this year and going forward. So, most of you guys already know that we have a villain that's, part of the Black Ronins, and he's definitely doesn't like when we do our podcasts and whatnot. So for those of you that's in the know, we released a video where Mr. Aku is getting ready to summon one of his henchmen to kind of go up against us Jones brothers and everything. And so we definitely made a little video to kind of show what he's up to and whatnot. So for those who were keeping tabs on that, if you came to tonight's stream or if you catch the replay and everything, we're going to find out who's our first opponent or first boss that the Jones brothers are going to be going up against. And in the next stream or so, we'll kind of show you some next step of what's happening, when we fought against, Aku's henchmen or Aku's opponents for us. So without further ado, we're going to show you who's our first opponent for this stream and what's going to happen on the next stream and whatnot. So without further ado, check this out.
Yes, I can hold. Yes, I would like to place an order for delivery. Aku. I think I'm in the computer. Yes, that's it. I'd like a large... What? Huh? Extra thick. 30 minutes, oh, it's free. Excellent! You're Exactly! I suppose you know why you're here. Right. Well, let me refresh your memory. Destroy the samurai! Die!
And so there you go. That's our first opponent here on the Black Ronins, Kinpachi. And
Well,
so on the next podcast where we're just chopping up, we'll show you as far as how that's going and who Aku may be sitting next and everything. And by the way, if you enjoy the content of what goes on here on the Black Ronins, just feel free to donate to us. We appreciate any type of donations you do and whatnot with our podcast because, first and foremost, our podcast is for you guys. We do this to kind of show our gratitude with the Japanese culture and the martial arts and everything. And so we just like to give back to show you guys what we do and the fun stuff and whatnot. And so definitely, if you guys enjoy the content, just feel free to donate. Also, whenever you do donate to the Black Ronins podcast, that's going to make Aku upset. And each donation, gets this from Aku.
Samurai, why won't you die?
So yeah, that's what we got going on and everything. So
yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
So yeah, we definitely look forward to more coming down the pipe for you guys. So y'all definitely going to be in for a pretty good year and whatnot. So indeed. So with that said, Shinobi Bro, any thoughts from your end, good sir, before we end the stream?
Yeah, I would say that I'm having a good old time. I hope everybody else is too. There's a lot going on in the world at the moment, but I am still very optimistic about the future because I feel like ourselves and the individuals that listen to us are willing and able to put in the time, the effort, the training to put themselves in a position of maximum safety and advantage. And we'll be able to take advantage because the opportunities are here and they're going to increase and they're going to multiply. There's going to be new industries, new companies, new jobs, new ways to tell stories, new ways to connect and interact with people. So I think that the future is very bright, and just wanted to say thank you to all of our viewers for checking us out and rocking with us on the Black Ronins podcast.
Indeed, Shinobi Bro. And I can't even it's always hard to top Shinobi Bro when it comes down to his thoughts and manners. I mean, my goodness. What can I say? The man just knows how to, make a bro just do some introspections and thoughts and whatnot. So you already know Shinobi Bro. It's hard to top his intellect. That's why he's Shinobi Bro.
No. I'm thinking more about our guests that we've interviewed. Like they've all said things that like I had to just kick back and crack open some Ito tea or something like that and just reflect.
Right, and definitely a big shout out to our lovely guests that we interview here on the podcast and everything. So definitely want to give a shout out to the Kokujin Samurai, Patrick King Song, and also a special shout out to LSM for their lovely interviews they've given us and allowing us to share their experiences and all. So we definitely want to give a special shout out to them. There's going to be more of stories and experiences like that coming down the pipe as well. So you guys are definitely in for a treat this year and the years to come. So we definitely just want to continue to show our gratitude and this is what we're all about. The Black Ronins podcast. We just love to share our experiences and our love for the cultures of Japan and other cultures over in East Asia, and even other people who share, similar interests that come from different places. Like, you'll be surprised on the Black Ronins over on Instagram. We got men and women who are sharing their cultures from Brazil and from Chile and from Iran, not just Japan, and even from Korea and China and whatnot. So, I mean, this is what we're all about. So we just enjoy being able to share their experiences and our experiences, and the things that we have in common, that's like from Japan and other cultures similar to that, and of the ways of Bushido and ways of ninjutsu and the shinobi ways. I mean, my goodness, where do we even end? We got so many stuff we could share.
A lot to cover. And maybe at some point, I've been watching Shinmue, the anime,
Mm.
lately, and I'm really interested in the um, Japanese slash Chinese interaction. So maybe at
Hmm.
some point, maybe we could find some, maybe into practitioners of like maybe classical Chinese martial arts. Because, for example,
Ooh.
in Ningpo, there's a lot of Chinese influence, and it's pretty obvious. Like if I go train in a park somewhere, I have people coming up to me saying, are you practicing Tai Chi, or is that Northern or Southern referring to, either Northern uh, gung fu or southern gung fu. So I think that'd be interesting at some point. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that we have yet to even scratch the surface on.
Oh my goodness, man! You already giving me some great ideas, for some future podcasts and whatnot, Shinobi Bro. So I'm already just giddy and super excited for that. So, I can't wait if we can find individuals that can share their experience in regards to the Chinese, Japanese connections and the older kung fu and Chinese martial arts. Like, I can't wait. Man, oh man. So, with that said, I am the Osamurai-san, Sigma Jones. This is the Shinobi Bro himself, Kirigakure Jones. We just want to thank you all for tuning in to the podcast here of the Black Ronins podcast and everything. We definitely got more coming down the pipe. But with that said, this is the way.
This is the way.